How you doing? Justin here. Welcome to BC-163, where we're going to be discussing the use of one of these things, which is a capo. Now, really useful little trick for beginners using a capo. Now, I use this brand of capo called a Kaiser capo, and they don't give them to me or anything. I don't have an endorsement deal. I just think they're really good. And you can easily get replacement rubber bits as well when they wear out, which for some other capos you can't. There's also a very excellent capo made by a company called G7 in the UK. I think their capos are great. I've got one of those that I use quite regularly. The other commonly used one is Shub, although I don't recommend that for beginners because it's a little bit fiddly to get it kind of set up. Whereas this one, very useful. So what does it do? If you haven't seen a capo before, you might find it a little surprising. What it does is clamps on the neck. We looked in earlier at bar chord F, where I said that first finger covers all of the strings. So you can kind of think of the capo as being a bar chord machine, or a little device that helps you with a bar chord. So what we first of all want to do is talk about putting the capo on. Now, you can either, most of them have some sort of lever to separate the capo. I usually put it on the top, because I find it easiest to access to move it, but some people prefer to put the lever on the bottom like that. To be honest, it doesn't really make any difference whatsoever. It's just a personal preference. It doesn't make any difference to the sound or anything, but I prefer to put it with the mechanism over the top like that. Now, one thing that is very important with the capo is the positioning of the capo within a fret. So let's just, before I talk anymore, let's go to a quick close-up and I'll make sure that you get the position of the capo nice. So here, hopefully you can see that the capo is positioned very close to the fret. Now this is important because if you put the capo too far back, away from the fret, you tend to get a lot of buzzy noises. If you put it too close to the middle, sometimes you can get the capo kind of pulls the strings a little bit too close to the wood and pulls it out of tune. So by far the best place for a capo is just before the fret without touching it. Now, from the front there, it's probably looking now like it's actually on top of the fret. It is just before it, but the rubber's kind of beveled inwards a little bit. So that is a really good position for the capo. The thing that you need to remember with the capo is replacing the nut of a guitar. So if you've put a capo on, you can now play an E chord. We're up at my capo's on the 5th fret, just in case you want to kind of capo along with me. But you can see here now, if I'm playing an E chord, the 1st fret is now the 6th fret, if you like, and I can actually play in my... There's my whole E chord there. And I can play any chord, any open chord, C chord, G chord, D, B7, B7, F, C, old school. There's loads of different ways that you can do these different chords here now. The thing that you have to remember with a capo is it's changing the pitch of the whole chord. And we've talked about tones and semitones before on the note circle. So that's all that you have to remember, is it's moving the chord up, tones and, well, one semitone at a time for every fret. So if we think the capo off, I'm going to use an E chord for this example. With no capo, we get an E chord. Now if I put the capo on the 1st fret and play an E chord, it's one semitone higher, so it's now an F chord. If I put the capo one more semitone up, one more fret up, it's now in the 2nd fret, it's now an F sharp chord. If I move it up one more, so it's at the 3rd fret, my E chord became a G chord. Really? Did it sound like a G? Let's test that and play an open G chord. Well, that sounds pretty close to me. There's a G open chord. Here's capo at the 3rd fret, playing an E shape. Sounds almost the same. This is why capos are cool, because it gives you alternative ways of playing the same chords. It's also really good for trying to play if you're trying to do a song that's too low or too high. If you're sitting there playing this song and you're going and it's too low, I'm just singing any random song here. And it's too low, then you can just go, well, let's whack that up a little bit, put the capo up at the 5th fret, and you can start playing and singing a little bit higher, and it kind of helps you sort out your vocal. This is a really good thing about capos. particularly if a girl is trying to sing a song that was originally sung by a guy. Generally, girls will put the capo around the 4th to 7th fret. So let's say the average would be the 5th fret, is about how different a man's voice is, like how low a man's voice is, compared to how a woman's voice would sit in the register or the key. So capo is very, very good idea for girls singing songs originally by guys. But generally, it can be really useful technique for it, especially if you're going to sing and play guitar. You probably want a capo. The other time is lots of times people use capos to record the original song. So you'll find that if you try and play a song without a capo, it becomes really, really difficult, and with a capo, it's suddenly really, really easy. So this is a little bit about capos. Best thing to do with a capo, experiment with it a little bit. So if you haven't got one already, go and lash out and get yourself a capo. The Kaiser ones, like I said, they're really good. They're a little bit more expensive than some other capos, but they seem to, I don't think I've ever broken one or worn one out. I've only ever lost them, which unfortunately I seem to lose them all the time. I think the sock monster steals them. You did realise the sock monster plays guitar, right? You know, the sock monster that comes and steals your odd socks. So you put socks in the washing machine and you go back to it later and there's like loads of individual socks and the other ones are missing. Well, the guy who nicks that's the sock monster. And he definitely plays guitar because he steals picks all the time. Loads of picks. This guy must have, or the local Chiswick sock monster must have loads of my picks. And recently he started experimenting with capos because he's been nicking these as well. Now that was a proper tangent. Apologies for that. Go and get yourself a capo. They're really, really useful. Lots of fun, and it'll help you play lots of cool songs. So have fun, and I'll see you for another lesson sometime very soon. Bye bye.